Hey guys, this is NUSensei. Normally I would do this as a voiceover or as a face-to-face thing, but this is a very spontaneous video, and the reason is this just arrived for me. This isn't actually mine. I've been buying a few things for one of our new members, and this arrived just today from Abbey Archery. On time, every time. You may have noticed that I've done a video on archery sights. And one of the things that I didn't really cover was the mid-range. I talked about the really cheap sights and the really expensive sights, but not really the middle range. And what I've got here is the Shibuya dual click, which is around $200, $220 around there, depending on where you buy it from. And I thought it'd be a nice contrast to compare it to my Shibuya Ultima RC. Switcheroo there. Ooh, which one's which? So I thought for this video that I'll unpack and show you the features of the Ultima as well as the Shibuya dual click. First, I'll go through my Shibuya Ultima. There are two versions, as you probably know. There's the RC, which is the recurve version, and there's the CPX, which is the compound version. And there are carbon versions, and there's the regular version made from, I think, aluminium. So inside the pouch, well, it comes as is, by the way. When you buy it from the shop, it comes in a pouch. You open the pouch, and I've already assembled mine, so this is kind of not really what's in the package, but this is what you typically get. You get your sight, you get a sight mounting block, which I've got on my rise at the moment, and you get some hex wrenches as well. And you also get the sight block itself in here. Now, the key difference, the Shibuya Ultima costs around $350 to $400, again, depending on where you buy it from. That's a pretty big price difference between this and this. It's around $150 price difference, and you might be wondering, well, what is the difference? Why should I buy an Ultima over a dual click? And I'm not saying you have to, actually. Depending on your budget, you might not need to. Now, this is basically the high-end sight. A lot of competitive shooters will use this, and let's have a look. So, the most important difference is, apart from the color scheme, is the way it attaches. The big thing about the Ultima is that there basically aren't any knobs. There's nothing out here which can come loose. The construction of the sight mount is very solid. I mean, you can shoot thousands and thousands of arrows, and this will never come loose. It's a very simplified mount because it doesn't need to be complex. Basically, this one screw here will help you loosen this windage adjustment. So if you need to move your sight ring in or out, or remove it entirely and replace it with a different one, you loosen this this nut, and the whole thing will turn. Otherwise, you can still turn it manually, but basically this adjusts the whole thing left and right. To adjust left and right, this is one knob, where if you want to go, say, move the sight to the left, you would follow the instructions here. So you move it outwards, so you would turn it outwards, click, 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 and that will move it a few millimeters outwards. And likewise with inwards. So it's a very micro adjustment friendly sight mount. When you mount it on the actual block, all you do is squeeze this one lever, and it just slides onto the block. You don't have to move anything here. It's all solid, like nothing will budge it. It's locked in extremely tight. Okay, so the only way to move this is to either use the lever as a quick release. You can just slide it off like that, or slide it back on. You can use you can see my the sight settings here, the figures. You can use the lever to just quickly adjust on the fly. It makes it very simple. So, for example, if I'm moving distance, I'm shooting at, say, I'm shooting at 60 meters, and I'm moving to 50 meters, I just slide the block up to where it should be. So I don't have to fiddle around with all these knobs. You might have seen my Cartel K sight where I had to like fiddle with 3 different knobs to get it done. This one is simply slide up, slide down. For micro adjustment, say you're shooting at your distance and then you realize that you're slightly low, you need to go a bit higher. You can still do this, you can go slightly higher, or you can micro adjust using these knobs. So for the vertical elevation, you're just using this thing. Okay, so it clicks, each click is, I can't remember, like 0.2 millimeter. So it's actually very, very fine tuning. And if you're at that level where a few millimeters matter, then this is actually a very good sight for you, because you have that option of easily adjusting as well as micro adjusting. Very solid sight, very rugged. This will not move. Very expensive, but very much worth it. This is the Shibuya Ultima. Now this is the Shibuya dual click, which is the level down. Shibuya has several sides, but the two most well known are the Shibuya dual click and the Shibuya Ultima. So this is the second tier of sights. So what you get, and this is brand new, I've opened it once. Firstly, wow, look at that. Look at that color. That is amazing. Let's take it out. Check that out. That is awesome. That red turned out really well. The Shibuya Ultima does come in red as well, but only the middle bits. The carbon rod is black. You can't do much of carbon. So if you order a red Ultima sight, the only thing that changes is this silver part. So I've ordered a silver and Ultima. You can buy black, blue, white, red, and I think yellow or gold is one of the colors. So that changes the metallic bits here. The whole thing is red. That looks pretty cool. That's one incentive to buy a cheaper sight is you get these options. My friend of course loves red, so I had the option of waiting for a black one, or ordering a black one, or waiting for a red one. Only took about 1.5 weeks, so I went for the red. So you get the sight mount, which of course I haven't used yet. This isn't my bow, so this is my sight. It's not on my bow. The sight mount is here. You get the sight settings on this vertical bar, and you get the usual. You get these screws. These are used to mount screw the mount onto your riser, and you get the set of hex wrenches, and you get the sight block itself, and that's what it looks like. Okay, where am I facing? There we go. All right, that's what it looks like. All right. So let's compare both of these sight blocks. So this is the dual click. This is the Ultima. Let's have a quick look. So you can see the front there, the right side. Of course, if you're left-handed, it'd be reversed, so it'd be upside down. But there we go. That's front side. That's the other side, and the back, and top too. I don't really see the top there. So yeah. Outwardly, they look kind of similar. Some similar features. They both have the windage adjustment knob, so you can fine tune your windage adjustment. So in this case, I said before, you can always kind of click that way or that way. So if you want to remove the sight pin completely, you can remove the nut over here and just remove the whole thing or slide it out. So these things have a maximum adjustment, but if you need to go beyond that, then you can always move it left and right. So like the Ultima has this knob. Same thing, you can adjust that, and you can adjust that on the dual click. This does actually have a quick release lever. You actually can't see this. Now, for most of the cheaper sights, if you want to quickly remove or attach the sight mount, you would actually lift this. Shibuya has actually built this kind of this metal incline, so you can actually squeeze it with your thumb. So when you put it on, it goes on here. You squeeze that, and you can you can slide it. There you go, all the way up like that by squeezing this. Normally you lift this up and kind of move it up, but with the Shibuya, you can just squeeze this and it comes up like that, or down. Yeah, there we go. And in line with a lot of the cheaper sites, it uses a serrated edge, and it uses the one vertical bar, and this is identical for a lot of cartels, a lot of the cheaper sites. So it's basically the dual click is like a mix between the high end Ultima sight and the cheaper cartel sight for that reason. So if you want to adjust your elevation, then you can lift this and move it up, click it onto one of these bars, and if you want to micro adjust, you can spin this. And I like how it clicks. It's a very good reference, so you can easily find the right amount of adjustment you need, and that's how you adjust these sights. You have this one knob here, which I believe this influences how how tight the other side is. And let me find out actually. Actually, I'm not sure what it does, to be honest. Because there's nothing on the back here, so yeah, I'm actually not sure what this thing actually does. Might be just like this display cabinet. If everyone knows what this is used for, just let me know. I actually don't know what this is used for. It's not my site, so it kind of looks kind of fancy. Kind of sticks out there like a lance. Well, anyway, so that's the sitemap between the Ultima and the dual click. The dual click here, and Ultima is this one. Now, I want to quickly talk about one of the differences in the site mount. Now, this site mount is typical of most sites. Most of the cheaper sites have this block. If you unscrew that, it's completely in line with the bar itself. So, whoops, it came completely. So this slides in and out. There are holes drilled into the bar, and to put it on the side, you're basically mounted on the riser. I've got my Ultima mount on this one already, but you're basically mounted there with the 2 screws, and look, that's expensive. All right, and you basically line up the hole, and then you would screw it in. It doesn't really matter which one you use. People prefer different things. The further the side is from the riser, the less difference the adjustments make. Whereas the other way around, yeah, further means more difference, whereas closer means there's less difference in the elevation adjustments. It doesn't really matter too much as long as you use the same one each time. So that's what it looks like on the dual click. The Ultima has a slightly offset bracket. So rather than being directly on the bar, it's actually offset. So what happens is the Shibuya bar doesn't have holes drilled in. It's a solid carbon block, which is great. It's very stable, and it has these little depressions drilled into the top. Now these aren't full holes. This is just little pits. So when you slide it in, you slide in there, and you kind of line it up, and then you drop the screw in, and it holds in place like that. So there are some interesting advantages to that one. Like you don't have to deal with the rattling screw. This rattles once, but once I tighten it, like it will never rattle for the whole session. Rattling screws isn't that big a problem. It does get kind of annoying when things come loose. That's one of the things with this thing with these sites is because the way the bear vibrates, these screws do have a tendency to come loose, which is not a problem. You just kind of retighten it very quickly. But these ones are very sturdy. The way it's designed and minimizes impact. So this doesn't really move. So that's one of the big differences. The higher end Shibuya Ultima does have an offset bracket, whereas the dual click comes with a standard inline bracket. Now, as far as functionality goes, there are a couple of key differences between the Ultima and the dual click. First is the location of the site markings. On the dual click, like with most of the cheaper sites, like the cartel sites, the site markings are on the front, whereas with the Ultima, they're on the side. So they're on this side, and you have a blank bar on this side where you can actually record your own site marking. So if you know what you're doing and you've got a marker, then you can just write on one side. Otherwise, you have the generic figures on this side. The indicator for the Ultima is on this side as well. So you see this little middle bar there. So when you move the site, that's what tells you the actual location. And I'll do it this way. There we go. So you can see how the bar, there we go, slides up and down. That's how we use as an indicator, which is cool. And the front also has an indicator, and this side has an indicator as well. There we go. So if you're using this side, you have indicators the same level, so it's pretty easy to figure out which level you're at. For the dual click, the indicator is in the front there. So when you do your adjustments, either this way, click, 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 micro adjust, or with the lever, then you can see the movement of that pin. So you can see if that's 2, move down to 3. So that's one difference there, is the location. That means, by the way, that there is no side where you can customize your site markings. You kind of either have to kind of write on the bar itself, or write in front, or put a sticky note or a tag or something to kind of know which one's which. So there's no way to kind of really go around this unless you use your own marker. You may have noticed in the last few minutes I've been struggling with the lever on this side. It's not because the lever is bad, it's the first time I'm used to it, but secondly, it's actually quite different to the Ultima. The Ultima has a much bigger lever you can press. Simply, if I'm changing my sights, I'm holding my bow, I'm doing a sight adjustment, I just squeeze this lever and move it. It's very easy to move. Whereas this one, because this is still tied to that round knob which locks into the bar, it's actually a bit more awkward because instead of pressing inwards, you have to press the top part and then move up and down. It can be a little more awkward when you actually have it on a bow. Again, not a bad thing, but one of the small inconveniences which you have to work around, and that's the cost of going from an expensive site to a cheaper site. It's mostly convenience, which is the difference, and this is a good example of convenience. This one is not as easy to use as the Ultima, but it's a subtle difference, but you're paying for that ease of use. The last thing I think I'll cover in this video is the difference between how the mount is locked onto the bar. And I think this is where the real price difference is. You're paying $200 something for the dual click versus about $300, $400 for the Ultima. This is where the difference is really at. The way this locks on, I think I'll look at it from this side. There are a couple of things to keep in mind. It doesn't really lock on through here, but it does lock on. The only thing really holding it onto the bar is this knob here, which means the top part here is actually a little loose. Now, I think if you adjust some of the screws, you might be able to alleviate some of that, but inherently, because the only thing keeping in place is that thing, as well as, actually, look, yeah, no, like, if you look at the side mount, the only thing that really holds it in place is that round thing at the bottom there. So there's nothing else on this side mount which actually keeps it where it should be. Does that work? No, I'll do the other way. Well, this is why I should don't like this particular lever. It's a bit hard to work with. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so when you put it on the side, it clicks on to one of these teeth, and that's pretty steady. But the rest of it, there is a slight bit of play. It won't affect anything. I don't think this would come loose. Whoops. I don't think this would come loose. This is quite solid, but it does have that slight play, which, you know, might kind of get to you. And again, the big thing, the big difference with the engineering of this side is the way this is locked on. So we'll remove the side again. You see this, it's actually connected with, you see it right in the middle there, right in the middle there. There's this little thing which juts out. When you remove it, it moves back. Rather than locking it in with the teeth of this knob, this is locked in using this very small mouth, you could say. So when you slide it in, and I'll change the angle here. When you slide this in, you can probably just make out right on top of the camera there that there is that gap. You release the lever, it closes, and that's actually a very firm attachment point. So again, you lift it, you can see that gap there. Hopefully you see it in camera. That gap there, lift it, lock it. When you lock it, no movement. There is no movement here. You can force it, it'll rattle for a bit, but there's basically no movement, no rattle. Very firm lock. I believe they call it a triple locking system. I can't remember what the 3 locks are, but there are multiple points. In fact, actually, you can see this. You can see, once I remove the side again, the way, this is, ouch. Okay, so you can see actually here, there's that one locking point there for the Ultima, but everything else, these don't move, but they do secure themselves onto the edges of the vertical bar, so it does fit in perfectly. It's a perfect fit, like a glove. This one kind of relies on one attachment point and the bracket to hold it in place, so it's not as tight. And that's the difference between the attachment points. Now, since the dual click isn't my sight, I don't want to take it apart and put it into my Ryzen and test it out, but sights function the same. The price difference between different sights like the Ultima and the Shibuya comes mostly in how convenient it is to use. The Shibuya, as you've seen before, very solid attachment, very solid sight, top end. The dual click is a little flimsier. This is the reason why you have that $100 price difference. It combines some of the cheaper features of a cheap sight, along with the more fine-tuning stuff from the Ultima end of the range. It uses the same vertical bar, it uses the same kind of elevation knob thingy, The lever, which you use to move up and down, it's a little clumsy to work with. I can imagine if you're having a bow, you're kind of playing around with this. It's okay, it works fine, but I find it a little harder to manipulate than using the Ultima's lever. Probably the last point of difference where the money really is at is how firm it is onto the side. The Ultima is practically immovable once you lock it in. The dual click has a bit of play. Not a big deal, but you can see the engineering difference. The cost comes in the manufacture of this particular side mount. So much more fine engineering in this side, much more secure. This one, functional, no real problems. But again, it's not as much of a high quality finish as would be for the Ultima. So that is the difference. So hope you found this useful, guys. Of course, there are more sites than the Shibuyas. There's always the Sherlocks and the Excel sites and so on, the Cartels and the win-and-wins. They're all good sites. I hope this clarifies the mid-range side a bit more. The high-end side, as you know, I bought this as soon as I could, and it's never done me wrong. It's a fantastic, solid site. The Ultima, if you have the money and you want to buy an excellent site, buying something like the Ultima is a solid choice. You cannot go wrong. This site is very reliable. Dual click combines the functions and the looks of the cheaper side versus some of the high-end stuff. Works fine. It's a nice, very good site. Would I buy this as a starting site? Well, probably not. I'd probably go with the cheap $50, $60 Cartel K sites to learn with. But if you want to build a good package and you want to get a good solid site that will last you for years, this one actually won't break down. The screws won't come loose. The site won't break. It's the same metal site as the Ultima. So this is actually quite rugged. You can use this. It's not as convenient to use as the Ultima in my opinion, but that justifies the price difference. So hopefully that explains a bit better for you guys. That's the Ultima down here. That's the dual click up there. Thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully I'll see you next time.